Welcome back to our Switch vs. Switch 2 comparison series. The Switch 2 has brought so many games that have choppy and unstable performance into a good place, and nothing says choppy performance on handheld consoles more than the Warriors franchise by Omega Force and Koei Tecmo. Today we're diving into a spin-off of that series and something I enjoy going back to for quick runs for fun. Here is how I've gotten Warriors Abyss to run on the Nintendo Switch versus the Nintendo Switch 2. For a brief summary, Warriors Abyss is about Musou characters being summoned by the previous King of Hell to fight through hordes of demons and take back the realm. It combines characters from Dynasty and Samurai Warriors, and thanks to the more recent updates for the game, Atelier and Ninja Gaiden as well. It's an isometric roguelite, having each run giving you elements and passives to create builds with, and giving you currency to unlock new characters and features for future runs. Switch 1's performance of this game was acceptable, but it did admittedly get pretty rough in the later parts of each run. To start our comparisons, let's go into load times. Going from the UI of the console to the game's title screen was decently long on Switch 1, taking around 34 seconds total. Going to the same sequence on Switch 2 only takes 17 seconds, slicing the load time in half. As we go into loading from room to room in the dungeons, we find basically the same thing happening. Switch 1 will jump down into the next floor in around 6 to 7 seconds, while Switch 2 makes the same loading sequence in 3 to 4 seconds. Now let's go into gameplay performance. I chose to do these tests mostly with Sophie from the Atelier franchise because many of her late combos have a lot going on with effects, especially once you get to her tier 5 combo that has several ponies moving across the entire screen taking out everything they ram into. When diving into Switch 1, it tries its best to stick to 30 FPS, but jumps around a fair bit even at the start of the game. It's not as easy to notice in Area 1, mostly just small and tiny dips during the combo animation, but it's definitely there. The Switch 1 runs into problems once you get to Area 2 with the snow and ice effects going on with larger groups of enemies attacking you. This gets you a lot choppier frame rates and more slowdown during basic combos. And it only gets worse the further you get in the game. Areas 3 and 4 take those drops and turn them into slowdown and sometimes split-second freezes, especially if you're using a character like Sophie. The Nintendo Switch 2 fixes most of this. From the get-go, we get a solid 30 frames per second in the earlier areas. This isn't surprising as Switch 1 handled these areas pretty okay on its own. But Switch 2's frame rate remains stable when you get to Area 2 with all of those weather effects and larger groups of enemies. As I continue to go further into my runs, the 30 FPS stayed stable for the entire game, though when I got to Area 4 there was one cinematic sequence that had some slight dips for a split second. Once I got to the defeat 800 plus enemy missions, I saw the frame rate dip for a moment whenever I would trigger the assembly attack and all of those characters would summon to the field. This was only for a split second and during a part of the animation where you don't have control anyways, but it was the only time I ever saw a blemish in that smooth 30 frames per second. It's not perfect, similar to some other games we've tested like Gun Pixies, but it's a gigantic improvement over Switch 1, offering a stable 30 FPS instead of an incredibly unstable 30 FPS. That's all I have to say about performance, so here is our side-by-side comparison showing the same room of Area 4 pretty late in the game running on both Switch 1 and Switch 2. And that's it for today. I'll be back soon with more Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 content. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.